So can you see the screen now? Okay, so thank you for joining me on this conference. I see Jenny's dropped off. So we might just get started. So for the next period of time, please turn your phones off in terms of taking messages and calls and that sort of thing. I understand, Claire, you might be listening through your phone, but that's fine. And also, if you can just stay muted when you're not being addressed, or if you have a question, just ask. But at the rest of the time, sometimes, people have dogs barking in the background, cars, ambulances, noises, whatever. So just keep those to a minimum if we can. And part of the reason I went forward with this was a bit of prodding and pressure from somebody we love, which is Christina God and her lovely husband, and the tool that they created called Stack Buddy, which is what I use quite often.
And how can I give more good to the universe? And so that's my MO. So that's my permission. If it doesn't give me joy and pleasure, sometimes work is hard and it's not always fun, and interruptions, blah blah blah. It's not about perfect bliss, but it's really what's my why and what's my how. And maybe because I was lucky enough about 30 years ago to come upon a practice that was really about harmonizing all those aspects of ourselves. And it isn't a constant like this.
It comes out with appropriate series of notes, because I have a whole bunch of other tools in the background that tell them working with me for over 18 months, so they know how I write and so on. And so they get it very, very close. And then what I do is just give it a freshen up and touch up and take the AI speak out of my notes. But it creates those notes. I don't sit there day in, day out creating notes. The same thing with allied content on other social networks. So Substack is my home base, so to speak. So I like to create my own content for that in long form stuff. Because also it was prescribed for me. When I was diagnosed with severe heart disease, the psychologist said, you need to write. You're a creative. You need to be creative. Start writing. And so for the first time ever, I wrote that book. And it worked. I didn't die, which is fantastic. I'm still here, which is even better. So that works. So I still like to create my own content. But when it comes to socials, things like Pinterest. So just a bit of explanation about me. I have two lives, basically. One before 50 and one after 50. The one before 50 traveled the world a lot in business and had some quite interesting adventures. The guy with the machine gun there, you see on the left, that was my security up in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, right up on the coast there. And I was a CEO out in the Pacific for a number of years and on the board of the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association. And I used to love smoking my Agili, the Arabic tobacco, flavored tobacco, and wine and alcohol. Travel. My wife and I travel a lot. We still do. But that was life before 50. And then prostate cancer turned up at 50. I also lost a business that had been going on for decades, and quite possibly the stress of that gave me prostate cancer. And so that sort of gave me the first of my resets and made me think about what life was really about. So I did think about it, and the last 8 years have been the start of this new life. And so recently, in the last year or two, I was the professional of the year for the entire Pacific. So for the 19 nations in the water sector, which is the engineering sphere that I'm in, I won that award. And since then have written a best-selling book. And he's got a copy, and Jenny's got a copy. And thank you for buying those. Every dollar helps. But it was a bestseller on Amazon, in Kindle, and in paperback in America, Germany, and Australia. Germany, I don't quite get, but anyway, I'll take it. So, and since then, I've been doing a lot of content creation. So I've got a Substack, I've got, and it's focused around Decode Your Diagnosis and things like this. I mean, this course, this masterclass was originally designed to assist people with chronic conditions, because ultimately 50% of the world, if they're over 40, have a chronic condition. So that's pretty much most of us. And the other 50% are carers of the people who have a chronic condition. So, and I'm really pleased to say that my folks, my mother listening in there, she's in her, I'd say, mid-80s, sort of 83, 84-ish. So, so they're both, mum and dad are, oh, there you go, mum, a bit of a quick quirk going on there.
Well, 82, actually, 83.
82, there you go. Sorry, I overstretched it. Every year counts then, I know.
That's good.
Thanks for the correction, mum. But yeah, mum and dad are doing fine. They've just been down at, my wife and I have an apartment down in Sydney, and they've just been down there for a week, living it up down there. So hopefully I can live long enough to do the same at their age. So I do Sessions from the Edge, which is a podcast that I do on Substack Live, which Patty was a guest on a couple of months back. So let's first have a look at the problem and recognize it. Content creation is a stressful activity. I mean, we've got to do podcasts, we've got to do notes, we've got to do posts, we've then got to post it up on YouTube if we have live recordings, and there's all this activity that we have to do around content creation, and that just builds stress. I mean, if you're writing a book as well, that takes it to even another level. I've got book number 2 underway right now as we speak, and so each of these things layer one on top of the other, and they all demand time, and more importantly, they all demand energy, and we only have so much energy. Problem with stress and energy is that it builds over time. And one of the things I know from personal experience is that stress leads, one of the main issues it leads to is heart conditions. And the other chronic condition I have is a severe heart disease. And I've got 2 versions of that. And the worst part of it is that it's high buildup of plaque. To give you an idea of where that's at, the Australian government says that 400 units, don't worry about what the units are, but just 400 units of plaque build-up is the maximum that they measure here in Australia. And that's for people who go in and get stents and bypasses and pig valves and all those sorts of things. My number is actually 1,649. So I'm actually 4 times the plaque build-up that they even bother measuring. And that just means that I've got plaque everywhere. It's in my brain, it's throughout my arm, limbs, all that sort of thing. Coronary-wise, in terms of my vascular age, I went and had my annual checkup, and I've got the same vascular age as my parents, who are 25 years older than me. So, you know, you have to be really careful about stress, because it has physical impacts. In the research for this course, I looked at it from 2 different directions. One, I looked at it from its impact on stress, on people with chronic conditions. And I actually found that for people with chronic conditions, being an online content creator, doing courses and things like Patty has, and the presentations that we do and so on, that actually improves our chronic illness, because it gives us purpose, it gives us direction, and it gives us interest. So we're less focused on the things that are impacting us. And that was a study that was, in the Journal of Medicine, which is a really important study. And then on the other hand, there's a brand new study that came out at the end of last year, October of last year, and it was created in the US to have a look at content creation and its impact on mental health, because we all know the issues with mental health these days, and the always on culture, the hustle culture of, you know, your phone, texting, messages, all that sort of thing. So they had to look at it from a content creator's perspective, because nobody's actually looked at it from the back end. Because the front end, we know what impact it has on society, and that's a rather negative thing in a lot of aspects. But what is the aspect on the creator side? So there's the results and the findings of both of those studies. And content creators have a significant mental health challenge, because I'll show you what the common themes are in the content creator study, because the other one about chronic illness is more a derivative study in terms of the impact for us as content creators. So if we forget about the medical issues and we just have a look at the mental issues, there's quite a number of them. This study goes into quite a lot of depth, and I'll send a link to it at the end of this session and put it in the show notes and so on. And you can have a look through it yourself. But it's quite an involved study, and there is a non-profit organisation behind this. But essentially, you see there, the key issues are overwork and burnout, and that always-on mentality. Not only do we do the front-end bit, which is what everybody does, of reading blogs and watching videos and all that sort of thing, but we actually create them and put that information out there as well. So we have both sides of the sword. Then there's the content performance anxiety. Am I getting likes? Am I getting subscribers? Am I having problems with all those sort of things? And even though we have a social presence, we're also isolated because we're here in our rooms creating this stuff when we should be out there and could be out there getting involved in it, or in the outside real world. And there is a very strong toxic relationship between us as content creators and the statistics. It's that gamification that these platforms have created that drives us to want to do more and to get more subscribers and more likes and all the positive things. And the downside of it, many of the content creator teachers around the place talk about crickets, putting something up and then all of a sudden there's just crickets. That downside is also hitting at us as well, because not only are we not getting movement as quickly as we expect, or what the teachers tell us, but we're also feeling that silence as well. And then there's an identity conflict, because we're going up there as experts, but what does that really mean on the scheme of things? Are we an expert in what? I mean, as Patty actually identified me, I'm a patient's advocate. My expertise is being chronically ill and doing the research behind that. But I'm an engineer, which has nothing to do with that. So why am I out there telling the world what it's all about? Things like that. And of course, there's a lot of noise out there about how we can turn our content creation into multi-millions in 90 days, or all those sort of things. You see all the bro culture stuff going on there. In reality, that isn't the case. So that's a combination of some of the highlights of the study. So what I'd like to do now is stop talking for a bit, and I'd like to hear from you. Now, Jenny, you're quite welcome to have comments as well, even though you're not a content creator. But Patty and Claire, you are. And Claire, you've joined the 50 plus group as well, and Patty too has already been in there. You've both been a part of Christina's stuff, so you're both content creators. I'd love to hear your stories. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 5 minutes with you at the stage, and just give us a quick introduction of who you are and what your content's all about, and then your key concern in creating content. Over to you, Patty. You have to unmute.
Yeah, there we go. Did I get it? All right. Well, thank you, Paul. That was really a great overview. And thank you for the studies. That's really helpful. So I'm Patty Wolin. I'm in California, Southern California. And now I feel like I'm a global citizen because of Substack. And I've got a couple buddies in Australia, and some people in Germany and Canada and across the country and across the world. And it's so exciting. And my interest and work is really about empowering patients, and I do functional health coaching. But I was also in medicine as a provider for a decade and saw firsthand just how badly the system is set up and breaking and crashing, and the care on both sides, the stress on patients and the stress on providers is incredibly bad. And I see a real gap widening in the US with all the little systems and policies and politics. But what I've been very surprised about, but not terribly surprised, is by meeting my friends across the globe, and especially those who are involved in health. They're helping me see what my instincts were, that the very rigid old Western medicine view is cracking, and we need to open and think more holistically as well as using the science. So what's happening is patients themselves have become so passive because of all the big systems of all the countries having some kind of way of, we'll take care of you, but they don't really. And so patients have gotten passive and not even realizing it. So I feel like it's a blind spot for patients. And what I know from being in those front lines and in a very prominent county with billionaires and also the poorest of the poor in the same place. And I got to see what happens when people become willing to partner and to take more responsibility as patients. But they were the very few. And once I started to find people, I left medicine because of COVID and the stress and the crazy situation. And I started doing health coaching online. And I realized that the people who really wanted to get better and wanted to live happier, they were willing to learn some things. And by teaching my signature course, which is about how to prepare effectively and become an empowered patient, then they found that they got so much more out of their care, and their providers were happier and leaned in, and just everything changed, even in a terrible system. So I really want to help people in that kind of strain, is help people get the language and the health literacy. And then also I love to as advocate, basically patient advocate is what a health coach is to some degree, but we largely just help people listen to themselves, and a lot of the stuff that you do, Paul, but I do it, of course, from a little slightly different angle. And but your work is wonderful. I think it's marvelous, and happy to be hanging out with you.
Thanks, Patty. And what's your main concern with content creation?
Well, really, you outlined it. It's that. Well, actually, the gamification and the worrying about all that stuff. I'm kind of a rebel. It's like, okay, I'm just on a spiritual quest. This is meaningful. This is purposeful. I have people that can see their lives changing. So that part doesn't catch me too much. If I start to have some of that, it takes me 10 minutes to shake that off. But the actual reality of needing to create a bulk of content and the use of time. And so I've recently gotten some new skills, but I know you are really a great mentor, a great model as far as really getting the stuff out there. So, I that's the part I need to catch up on. And really having the content that's got some quality seems more important. That builds, and then I'll worry about the timing. Maybe later, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I do like to have quality connection, which that's easy. But your level of producing is quite remarkable, and that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, you're I'm humbled by your comments, Patty, and you are a great supporter. You're constantly restacking my stuff and all that sort of thing. So it's your sort of activity that keeps me going, because it does feel like crickets at times. You are talking to a wall. Thankfully, I do have some great supporters, so that's fantastic. Now, Claire can't talk because she's got people asleep. So we might skip Claire and talk about her on another session, or let her have a talk on another session. But there's also the 50 plus community that we will start having a chat with next week. So we're going to start having regular meetups there, and maybe Claire, you can jump in there and tell us more about yourself then. So what I'll do is skip the next one, because that was, allowing people to come back out of their breakout rooms and come and have a chat and give us an idea of what they talked about in their rooms. So we'll move right along to the paradox of expression, and we'll have a look at both the pros and the cons of expression, because there are benefits. I mean, I love this stuff, and it's great, as I showed briefly in that other study. It actually is good for our chronic illness health, because because expression gives us meaning. I mean, every time we write a book, there's nothing better than having your own book. I mean, that bit of cardboard that you can hold in your hand and go, this is mine. I did this. But this and the content that we create and the sessions that we podcast, that we record, and that sort of thing, that gives us meaning. It gives us something to share with people, but it also takes a lot of energy, and that has its impact. And the impact is what I've sort of thought of as an exchange rate. And that exchange rate, it can increase on the one hand, but also decrease on the other, because it's a higher cost. Because as you do more content, there's more stress involved. As you have more people, and then you start getting comments that are not necessarily as popular as you expected, and so on, all those things start snowballing. And so they have this balance. In my book, for instance, there's a thing called dynamic harmony, where the positives and the negatives, the elements and the forces are impacting. And there's always that pressure. We are told that we have to be consistent. We have to show up regularly. We have to produce, so that our people are there to see our content, read our content on a regular basis. And the big driver, that gamification driver, is about growing your audience. One of the questions I had kind of leading up to this from one of the people that was attending this was her concern about members versus subscribers. Why have I got all these followers, and not subscribers? So it's real. And the problem is this energy mismatch. We've only got so much energy in a day. We've got to live life. We've got to, work with the family, do the family thing. We've got to eat and so on. We've got to do our own social life as well as our content creation life. And somewhere in amongst all that, we've got to sleep as well. And motivation can be an issue, that loss of motivation. And once that motivation starts falling away, well, then it becomes, it sort of permeates out into your everyday life, and your whole motivation starts to decline. And the one that is a big one I have to watch for all the time is that building of stress. But you are not a failure. You're not a loss if you're not social. So if you don't get those likes, if you don't get those extra subscribers, that's okay. That's fine. And it's not personal. Nobody actually really knows you or cares about you other than your family, other than those around you that really love you. So at the end of the day, whatever somebody says on a screen, whatever somebody does on a screen against you or not against you, in other words, not motivated to do anything with you, that's okay. That's fine. It's not personal. And this one is the hardest one, because the whole world is hooked on this. The technology does not own you. Substack is not your life. Facebook is not your life. They are tools that we use on a regular basis to express ourselves. So, Patty, that's a nice little quick one just to keep things moving along. We'll go back to you. Tell us what
You have to keep
paradoxes
me
are
on,
you?
you have to keep me on track. I think I might have gotten off track last time. So
That's all right. No, that's this time you'll get away with it because you do love talking, and that's fantastic.
Okay.
It was a great session that we had that time. And so, yeah, tell us, what paradoxes are you experiencing with your creative expression?
I feel like I'm in a constant growth curve, which is kind of exciting and fun. And what I really like about life is even if you had a upset or whatever, well, really it doesn't take too long, a little pity party, and then it's like you start weaving, some kind of positive out of it. So so the paradoxes of my creative, I think it's really this ability to put together the kind of content that's evergreen. I think evergreen content is what I'd like to create, along with some of the, short little, the notes is kind of fun to do, like a pretty photo once in a while or whatever. So paradox. So the wonderful thing is I have already, I feel like what I've done so far is really good, but it really doesn't, I need to have a bit more, which I think I've just kind of started a new trend. And I think I'm looking forward to having enough to get Stack Buddy. So the exciting thing of, okay, I got this idea and I'm growing, and then it, somehow technology or family need or whatever comes in the way. And it's like a week or two later and I don't have as much done as I would really like. So I think there's that tug. I am kind of a rebel. I really should be worried about how many new subscribers I have and so forth. But I tend to really work on building quality relationships and building that a longer time frame. But maybe I'm learning, differently soon. But anyway, so I think, does that say enough about your question?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great, Patty. And Claire is muted, so unfortunately she can't talk. So we'll move along. This is great. So now let's have a look at permission without prescription. The first permission we need to give ourselves is that it's okay that expression is not the same as exposure. As creatives, a good part of us is also about just sharing what we like to express. Whether we become a bestseller or not with books, or whether we get lots of people on our socials and so on, that's not as critical as just getting out there and enjoying what we do. And I think the moment that you lose that expression, that enjoyment expression, is the moment that you start trading yourself for what is something that you enjoy to what is something you do as a business. And business is stressful. So, you're going back around into that sort of paradoxical loop again, where you're going back into pushing yourself hard, trying to develop things. Now, one caveat I must say is that I am trying to move this towards a income of some description, but that's different to expression, and I have to compartmentalize the two. You're allowed to be thoughtful without being visible. And what I mean by that is that you don't always have to be posting. You don't always have to be putting notes up there. You don't always have to be doing recordings, but you could be talking to people in that direct messaging space, or you could be having offline groups and get-togethers. For instance, one of my daughters both my daughters are content creators, and both have online presences, but they're far more mindful than I am. They also go out and do real life sessions with people. And I think that connection is also just as important. So then you're also allowed to care without broadcasting. One of the things we see a lot in the modern day is fake news, fake media, fake approval, fake empathy, and certainly, as a person with a chronic illness, you've got something that is irreversible, incurable, and people say to you, "Oh, I really, I really care for you. I really," and of course, close family do, but anybody who's any second, second distance from that really doesn't have a care. They're just thankful that they don't have a chronic condition themselves. And the same goes with our care. We are allowed to care for our subscribers. We are allowed to care for our followers, but we don't have to shout about it. If you're going to have those sort of discussions, I tend to take that offline. And the other thing is asking yourself, are you really trying to do this for the money, which is all about exposure, or are you doing it for pleasure? And I think a lot of people get caught up in the hamster wheel of creation, in the gamification sense, that they suddenly see that they're getting more subscribers, so they suddenly turn into a production line of creating posts, creating notes, creating content, doing podcasts and things just because they're doing it because the system says they should, not because they're doing it for their own expression. And what are my strengths? We all have heard of strengths and weaknesses and done those sort of reviews over life. What are your strengths as a content creator? What are you spending a lot of time on that it's not your thing? It doesn't feel right. It's hard to do. And, it just takes up too much of your energy. Is that a strength? No, it's a weakness. And, what are my real strengths that I should focus on? And that's probably where I'd blossom as a content creator as well. I'm still finding my particular, even though I've got a book about decoding your diagnosis, and that's the focus of my content, to restore agency and purpose to people with touched by chronic illness. That's my massive transformational goal. But ultimately, I'm yet still to find out where my true strengths are in this space. Some people say that me doing presentations and me interviewing people is a strength, and I like it too. So maybe that's more of a focus for me. Things will be different for you, Claire, and they'll be different for you, Patty. And this one I think is really important. Am I creating content I care about? So many creators just put content out there just to, you see it in their posts and their notes and their videos and so forth on YouTube. They're just putting content out there to be noticed. They don't really have an interest in what they're doing. They're just there to pump content. And if you're pumping content, you belong to the algorithm. You belong to the machines. The second permission, that was all grouped up as the first permission. The second permission is that visibility is not an obligation. You are not obligated to be constantly on. You're not obligated to be in all the chats and all the discussions and all the notes and so on. You can choose to be, certainly. I choose to look after a conversation space called the 50 Plus Club. That's fine. That's a choice. But I don't go around jumping on every chronic illness conversation or forum, and I try not to spend too much time. I used to spend a lot of time on finding all those sort of things and a lot of time on responding and DMing and liking and all that sort of stuff. Now I actually physically limit it to 15 minutes for making comments and 15 minutes to going around and just trolling the content, the YouTubes and all that sort of thing. I do that every morning. So my morning session is about waking up, doing an hour of meditation. I practice formal meditation. And so I do that for an hour. Then I'll make a coffee. Then I'll sit down and do the content and so on. Then I'll have breakfast, and then I'll jump onto the computer and start work, because I do have a day job. And so on. And then I do this in the evening, content creation. What does permission look like? Well, for some people, it looks like doing less. And certainly people with chronic conditions shouldn't necessarily push their boundaries of their physical health, because their body will tell them so if they push it too hard. For others, it looks like changing how and when they express. One of the problems we have here in Australia, for instance, is that we're at the bottom of the world, and you guys are on either sides of us. The Europeans are over there in the west, and the Americans are over there in the east. And right now for me, it's, you know, mid-morning, and for you, it's getting late in the evening. And over in Europe, where I have subscribers, you know, it's 2:00 in the morning. So when that reverses, when people ask me to get involved in stuff over in Europe or over in the US, then it's me up at midnight, 2:00, all those sort of things. And to be honest, with a chronic condition, I have a very strict regime of going to bed at 9:30 or 9:00 if I can, sleep by 9:30, or 9:30 if I can't, and then asleep by 10. So I have to push everything else out into the other time zones. And so that's a very important thing about changing when to express. It means that you won't necessarily be live at East Coast American time, which is, you know, the heartland of the online social content space. And then the second one is, yes, you in the West, Patty, in California, down in San Diego. So the West Coast of America is the next time zone. So yeah, we can't match those things. So we don't try to, but we can schedule them. And for others, it looks like stopping for a while without turning that pause into a personal failure. I've seen a number of associates of mine, friends of mine online who, again, have chronic conditions. And I keep talking about chronic conditions because that's the space I talk about. But people with cancer, you know, there's one lovely lady, or a couple of lovely ladies at the moment, who have different cancers at the moment, and they've simply had to withdraw from posting. And they've been guilty. The comments are that they've felt guilty about it. I used to have that same guilt, and I used to express that guilt online. Now I don't. You've got to be very, that personal space is an important part of our content creation life. And we have to give our life that space. So Patty, back to you. What does permission look like for you?
Okay, got it unmuted. Sometimes you ask me hard questions, you know, because
I love hard questions.
I know you do. And maybe it's a little bit of the language, you know, different slight angles. But I was kind of curious about your permission without prescription. So is that kind of like not needing permission? Is that kind of what that means?
Yeah,
Giving
it is.
ourselves permission, is that the kind of...
Yeah, so the prescription, it was a pun. I was using a pun there. The content creation space says that we have to do so many posts per week. We have to do so many notes per week. We have to put so much content up onto YouTube with so many shorts and so many long forms, and Facebook has to have this and that, you know, and LinkedIn again is another one. So there's all these different activities, and each one has their prescription of what you must do. If you want to be, to be a content creator, you have to follow this prescription or you're dead.
Oh,
you know?
Well, thank you. Actually, that kind of clarifies. I just wasn't sure if I was missing the point.
That's all right. It's probably me taking the pun a bit too far, but and thank you for the question, because I'll address that in this slide set for the next time I do it next quarter.
Well, actually, maybe everybody else got it. Since I was stuck in medicine for a decade, maybe there's where I got stuck. But
no, not at all.
I feel pretty blessed because I feel like the way my life has gone, you know, kind of blooming in different seasons than most people. I don't worry about doing what I should do anymore. I think I did a long time ago, but really thankfully I got into what gives me joy, what gives me peace, what helps me to be a better person. How can I give more good to the universe? And so that's my MO. So that's my permission. If it doesn't give me joy and pleasure, sometimes work is hard and it's not always fun, and, you know, interruptions, blah, blah, blah. It's not about perfect bliss. But it's really what's my why and what's my how. And, maybe because I was lucky enough about 30 years ago to come upon a practice that was really about harmonizing all those aspects of ourselves. And it isn't a constant like this. It's a it's a little bit of a roller coaster at times, but there's always that what pulls me back. And so what pulls me back is, am I having quality experiences? Am I creating positives and joy? Am I feeling good about what I do? That's my permission slip. So I hadn't really thought of it like that, but I'm excited that, okay, I'm affirming, aligning. There it is.
Oh, that's great. And just briefly, would you like to mention this? What was this thing that you learnt 30 years ago that has changed things for you?
I learned an art called Jin Shinjitsu, which is basically a Japanese version of acupressure, self-help acupressure, and the philosophy and the practices behind it is what helped to create my life from being upside down to right side up.
Thanks, Penny. Thanks for that. So what we'll do now is we'll move along because Claire is muted. So we'll carry on. So let's now have a look at some tools and have a look at them in a couple of, for those people who are focused on one particular social network, we'll look at a group of them. We'll also look at the tools, and I'll have a little bit of a show on one in particular. So from the automation perspective, we've got the AIs. So like them or dislike them, I actually love them, but that's a personal preference. The AI technologies are constantly changing, week after week, day after day. They've become sentient in the last week or two. I mean, that's how quickly it's happening. They're now making religions. They're now talking together in their own social networks that we actually even can't participate in. We can go and view them, but we can't participate. So this part of the social network and the social tool space hasn't even developed yet. We're really only seeing the front edge of it. I'm playing a bit more in the back end, but and actually, in fact, in this case, Patty's actually one of the people testing a Gemini gem. This particular gem is just a beta and alpha version. We're just first test of it, but later on in about 6 to 12 months, I'm going to adapt it to actually being something that people can, if they have a chronic condition, they can talk to and they can get results from. So these things are very quickly going to take over the social space. And I think from our perspective as content creators, the more we get into using AI, and I'm not talking about using AI to write our content for us. Yes, use them as a muse, use them as somebody to automate some of your content. So for instance, I always write my full weekly, once a week I do a newsletter, goes out on Sunday nights or Mondays, and the cipher line, as it's called, I write myself. Now, for quite a while, last year it was chapters out of the book and so on. This year it's talking about the content that the person I'm interviewing in my sessions from the edge and so on in the next week, or the person that is being highlighted. So for instance, we spotlight after the recording, like we did with Patty, we spotlight that particular session. And so I get 11 labs or one of the others to create a transcript of the interview. I download that into their system, and I say, okay, I've created a instruction, basically a prompt to create the notes. So I get it to create 5 a.m. notes and 5 p.m. notes and 2 weekend notes for the week. And it comes out with what it thinks is the right appropriate series of notes, because I have a whole bunch of other tools in the background that tell them how I like to write. They've also been working with me for over 18 months, so they know how I write and so on. And so they get it very, very close. And then what I do is just give it a freshen up and touch up and take the AI speak out of my notes. But it creates those notes. I don't sit there day in, day out creating notes. The same thing with allied content on other social networks. So Substack is my home base, so to speak. So I like to create my own content for that in long form stuff, because also it was prescribed for me when I was diagnosed with severe heart disease. The psychologist said, you need to write. You're a creative. You need to be creative. Start writing. And so for the first time ever, I wrote that book. And it worked. I didn't die, which is fantastic. I'm still here, which is even better. So that works. So I still like to create my own content. But when it comes to socials, things like Pinterest, things like Facebook and those things, you still have to go those. LinkedIn, they are variations on a theme. And so I get them to do that. I have DeepSeek, for instance, as a strategist for me. It's free, so it's now at the level where it's as good as any of the others. I have Gemini I have different gems created to do different tasks. So one gem does the written content, another gem does my graphics, and so on. I'm not a graphic artist, I'm a mechanical engineer. Worst thing for graphics. But I do have an idea of style. So what I do is I have a certain bunch of things in the background that they sort of guiding instructions, if you like, and a master protocol that they can't step over. For instance, because I'm dealing with people with chronic conditions, I've got to be very careful not to cross any boundaries of the medical specialists that people have and the medical professionals that people use. So anyway, all those guardrails are in there. 11 Labs is fantastic. That's the one I use to turn content. Yeah, you like it, Claire? Turns content from written text into audio text. And I have recorded my voice. That recording is about 18 months old. And I was going to use it to do my book into an Audible, which I still will do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-record my voice, because at the moment my voice sounds like cross between an Australian trying to be a British plum in the mouth person from Harvard or somewhere. I don't know. It's a real mixed match of American, British, and a little slight bit of Australian in there. But it's about, as somebody who never knew me, when I played the recording to them, they said, it's about 70% you. So that's good. That was the first. I mean, the difference between 11 Labs 18 months ago and 11 Labs now is miles ahead. So I even use 11 Labs now to do my graphics, because they've got a very strong graphics engine. So that's just a bit of a background about automation. On the socials, and one of the I haven't mentioned there is Grok. I'm not into Grok at all. I'm not into anything sort of focused on the fake news and the wave that's going around the world at the moment. So you don't see Grok in there, and you don't see X in there in terms of those two platforms. I'm not making a statement. It's just they don't interest me. I'm not into all the junk that's going through them at the moment. So on the social space then, of course, Facebook, the big one's been around for quite a while now. A new one on the block here, it's Blue Sky. Blue Sky is what X used to be. Oh, okay, Claire, you've played with it before. Okay, great. I'm just now in the sort of first stage of testing it. I've only been playing with it now for a month, and it seems to be quite good. The people there are are sensible human beings like we used to on Substack, as opposed to the junk on the other channels. Of course, YouTube. YouTube is the largest search engine next to Google. Google is very quickly disappearing. If you have a look at the graphs, I don't have a graph to show you, but if you have a look at the graphs, Google searching has dropped off a cliff in the last 3 to 4 weeks as AI becomes sentient, and as people suddenly start, or not suddenly, but as that exponential curve starts taking effect and people start using the AI tools instead of doing Google searches, it's showing up in the statistics. And yeah, searching on Google is dead. It's gone. So YouTube, though, people still like to sit and watch videos because we don't watch television much anymore. We get sick of Netflix and all those sort of things because we've seen it all before. And bingo, we get new content and searching for things out of YouTube. So that's an important one for us. Substack, as I say, that's my home because that's a space where it's not just about creating content, but you can also use it instead of a website. For instance, my website now is just collecting cobwebs, but also the splash pages for any of these things that I do. So it's the place where you sign on to a form and those sort of things. But it's not what a website used to be. It's not a blog space anymore. Substack is very quickly taking that over. Pinterest is more an advertising platform for us anyway, and for the sort of content that I do. Yes, I do put some stuff up there. Don't use Instagram. It's not inside my demographic. I don't know about you. We'll ask what you think. And then there's Stack Buddy. So this is Christina and Patrick God's tool. So Christina, for anybody who's watching this after this recording, Christina God is one of the serious players in the Substack space and a go-to person if you're wanting to learn anything about Substack, a bunch of courses and so on. And she has created a tool called Stack Buddy. And what I'll do in the next couple of pages is show you a bit of that. So Stack Buddy has 2 tools at the moment, and there'll be a third one coming along soon. The first part of Stack Buddy is the ability to schedule notes. So essentially, those notes that I talk about, so, I'm automating my system. So I have my long form newsletter content that I bring out on a Sunday. I feed that into the system. It creates the notes for me. And then I take those notes and load them up into Stack Buddy once a week. And you see here at the moment, for instance, there are 7 notes lined up to go out. There was one last night, so I took this screen grab last night. There's one last night at 9:30 last night. There's 2 going out today, morning and evening. So you'll see there morning and evening each day of the week. And then there's one on Saturday, and then there's one on Sunday. So I can go in here, I can copy and paste, I can edit them if I wish to change some fonts and things. So in terms of my workflow, it'll go my own content doing in Google Docs, then into the AI, and then back to Google Docs, because I always save everything out of my AI into my Google Docs in different spaces, and then into here. And then you queue them up, and you can set them for any time you like. I've set them as exact times there, just a preference, but you can have 9, 31, 32. Every minute of the day is available to you. So you can make it a bit more random if you, which is great. And that's the note side. You can add images and all that sort of thing, links. Inside of this, what you can't see in here is the text. But, there's an example of one session up there. That's the one that went out this morning, actually. And that's just text up there. But I could have added an image there and so on. The other back-end tool that's really useful, and this is part of the thing that spurred us on to setting up the 50+ club. So there's 2 sort of clubs in Christina's world at the moment. One is on her online writers club, which is a private collaboration club and part of it from her courses. That's her own circle platform. And then there's the Substack version that we've just created in the last couple of days. That's for people 50+, midlife, who are content creators. And this Substack StackBuddy collaboration tool, you can see dots on the map, so you can see where everybody is. And I'm this little button over here in Brisbane, Australia, down here in the Southern Hemisphere. And this person here is actually, if I go back, is actually here. This red dot here in Bahrain is actually Wajiha Nadim. And I chose her not for the current situation in the Middle East at the moment, which is very dire. I've got family of my own, or my wife's, that are there at the moment in amongst all of that, so I won't discuss it. But ultimately, Wajiha Nadim is one of my subscribers, and she is in Bahrain. And this is what a description looks like behind the scenes in terms of that red dot. You see her name, you see what the title of her Substack is, and a brief summary, and as well what she's looking for in terms of collaboration, because this is a collaboration tool. So ultimately, she's looking for guest posts, podcast opportunities, and cross-promotion. So you can find anybody in here who's subscribed to StackBuddy, and you can collaborate with them. Now, Patty's in here as one of the collaborators, and so on. So that's it for the tools. Very quickly, Patty, have you got any thoughts? What tools do you use?
Well, thank you for that review. I've got that one little part of StackBuddy, and I've been wanting to get enough stuff to actually invest in the other part. So you've made me very excited about that. Actually, I took an extra higher level of training in AI using Claude Pro.
Excellent.
And so I have created some assistants, and I'm really excited about using it, as you say, not to pump out my content. I mean, the notes, it's helpful, but I always rewrite, and it's always my lead. It's like, okay, this is what I have in my mind, and here, here's my little set of, this is what the areas, the rules, the guidelines that are mine. But really a lot of technology work. I just did a publication that went into a interactive PDF that took a lot of Word and the PDF adjustments. I would never have been able to figure that out. But this, AI knows how to do all kinds of things. All you need to do is know how to say, okay, what do you need? And how do we do this together? And no, I don't like that. So Claude's become my best friend, basically. Not my best friend, but, my best tool, and is helping me to use my potential more. So I'm excited about getting engaged with StackBuddy, and now I'm excited about getting into the plus 50, because I've seen that coming out, but I didn't understand it. So you made that real clear to me. So
Yeah,
I was playing there. So
we've only just started that one, so that we'll be expanding that out as we go.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So that's really it for me in regards to the automation. Actually, Gemini is the place that but I didn't realize it was where you had done it too. But I learned how to get some graphics, though I'd like to learn more about that. So, and I hadn't heard of 11 Labs. Thank you, Claire and Paul, for that sounds interesting. I'll check that one out. But I do find that if I spend too much time, technology can really suck the time.
Absolutely.
So I like to stay with things that are working for me. And I did take the extra time to have a very extensive training, which was very helpful in regards to the AI use. So anyway, that's it. But I think you've done a good job sharing. Thank you.
No, that's okay. So Gemini for me, so I used to be really deeply engaged in OpenAI. That was the first tool that I used. And before the others started getting persistent in terms of holding conversations and things for over sessions. I used OpenAI because I had projects going in there. I had long streams of content that have been going on forever, since OpenAI started, basically. And so, but then the others started catching up. And at one stage there, I thought, well, I'm having trouble creating content because I've got this barrier around my Google Docs and my Google spreadsheets and things. And so I then sort of weighed up the cost of OpenAI versus going into Google. So Google have Google Workspace. And so now I have everything inside that environment. My Gemini can talk directly to my files. So they interact with each other. So I will talk to my Gemini and I'll say, I need this added to this document, and it'll go and put that in there. It'll go and pull information. I use Notebook LM, which is, and this is not the space for that. I'll do this some other time, but I use Notebook LM to house all my documents for a particular topic. And then I have the Gemini, through a Gemini Gem, talking to that notebook. And so it's pulling that reference point of all those different documents. It's got my book in there. It's got everything in there. And so I've got this huge brain in Gemini, and Gemini is it's in your file space, it's in your doc, it's in your spreadsheet space, or you can be talking to it directly. So it just opens up a whole new world of creativity and efficiency that I haven't had before. So really good one, that one. Thank you for that, Patty.
Can I add one more little thing?
Absolutely.
Just so you know, Claude also talks to my Google Space.
Oh, great. Because OpenAI says they do, but they don't do it as well. I see Claire's got a hand up as well. Yep. Fantastic. Yeah, well, that's great that they're doing that, because it just doesn't make any sense that you can't connect all of that, especially at the time right now, these last couple of weeks, where the whole agentic world, as it's called, the AIs becoming agents and being sentient and stuff, that just the lack of connection just doesn't make sense. But anyway, that's all happening right now. That's great, and it's really good that you've done that with Claude. That's excellent, because Claude is at the moment, and they're leapfrogging each other all the time, but Claude is the cutting edge of AI in terms of ability, for sure, in terms of that knowledge space anyway. So well done. All right, well, we'll carry on then. So the last one I'd like to go through is just an invitation. And this is an invitation to expression without sacrificing health. Because whether you have a chronic condition or not, your health does suffer. And Claire's signal that she's got to leave soon. That's fine. Thank you for joining us, Claire. Because the follow-on from this is that I have put together a 3-week course. And that 3-week course will be run for the first time in May. And this recording from this session's masterclass will go out into the ether and be on YouTube and so on for the next 6 or 8 weeks. And then when I get back I'm going to India for a month for meditation and yoga. And when I get back, I'll open the course and have some fun then. So this course exists to take that extension from this masterclass into a longer form environment, so that we can learn more and talk more about how content creation is impacting you personally. And it exists to help someone change their relationship to expression without increasing cognitive load, identity pressure, or health cost. Those things that we've been talking about briefly through the masterclass. In week 1, we'll destabilize that false self-blame that people give each other, or give themselves, I should say. We'll stabilize the capacity and the boundaries, and then we'll release authority. So first we'll break it apart, then we'll bring it back together, and then we'll let it go. Release authority back to you so that you can enjoy your content. You can enjoy life without the content as well. And what will you learn in the first week? Well, we'll identify the villains of your creative process, and we'll specifically look at the cognitive load of the always on culture. And in each of these sessions, of course, each week, it'll be a session like this once a week for 3 weeks. The first one, each one will have a document of some description that we can work on, that you can be drafting up as we go. Because the outcome for this week will be a personalized content guardrail document that defines your sustainable output limits. In the second week, we'll have a look at the technical order of operations, and I'll go much deeper into the online tools that we use to de-stress the workflow, as well as a live walkthrough and a demonstration on my own tools, seeing it in my own space with my own content. The outcome from that week will be a functional automation map that will eliminate the where do I start morning anxiety or weekly anxiety. Patty, this was one of your questions, how do I batch, or this was your question, sorry, in your form that you filled out. How do I group the content? How do I batch the content? That's what we'll look at there. In week 3, we'll learn how to turn lived experience, again, this is a Patty question, into evergreen sequences, something that you asked about before. Because yes, it's about repurposing, reusing, a very important part of the activity, and shifting your model from a manual hustle to an automated funnel. So actually seeing the connections and actually creating your own work through in your tool that provides value even when you're resting in recovery. Because when I'm asleep, my stuff still goes on, and that's what this is all about. So deliverable outcome, a fully drafted 7-day automated sequence. So we'll look at what is the automation sequence for the week, because ultimately you need a plan. Now, Neera Mahajan, who's one of the people I've learnt from as well, she looks at a 3-month, full quarter plan in terms of an overall scope, and then she plots out the content. And we'll come up with a legacy content plan to repurpose your deep work into multiple social assets. So, what is the value of your sanity? Because this is an investment in your sanity. Now, the regular price would be $479 or something like this. It'd be somewhere around the $479 to $900 and something in a lot of spaces. I'm going to totally blow that this time, because I just want to do the course to help people to have that evergreen content there. So when it comes out in May, it'll be $179 just for this quarter, just this one time only. After that, it'll go up to the regular price. And so what I'll do is I'll be sending you an email after this that will just give you some links. It'll give you a link to StackBuddy, and it'll give you a link to the course, the sign-on. There'll be a waiting list, and you can sign on then. So that's pretty much it from me. So I think I went a little further than 5 minutes there, Claire, but I hope you've actually enjoyed what I had to put forward, and I hope it was of benefit to you. And have you got any questions? Claire's got a thumbs up. She's got a no on the questions. And we'll see you in the 50 Plus Club, Claire. Absolutely. We'll talk to you then. Thanks for joining us. Patty, what about you?
Sounds really good. This was a lovely experience, and thank you for explaining all of your layers. You're very good at that. That's that engineering mind you have, and mixed with your creativity. And it's very nice of you to be a mentor for people. We all have different skills, and it is fun to share them, for sure. Absolutely. So lovely. I thank you very much for your time and your willingness to continue to chunk things down and make them simpler for people.
That's great. All right, Patty. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you, Jenny. And that's it for the De-Stressing Content Creation Masterclass.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, guys. See ya.